The under 10,000 rupee price range has seen an influx of new phones in the recent past, and today we are taking a look at two of the new entries from both Realme as well as Nokia to see which one of them is worth your hard-earned money. Hey guys, Omar here from C4eTech, and if you do end up enjoying my comparison between the Realme Narzo 20A and the Nokia C3, then please consider subscribing to the channel and hitting that bell icon so that you get notified every time a new video goes live. With that, let's get started. Now we rarely get to talk about smartphone form factors because, hey, let's face it, everything is a boring solid slab. But okay, curved phones, they are changing things quite a bit, but with the C3, Nokia has gone full on old school. So we get a removable back panel, a removable battery, and slots like these for the dual SIMs and the memory card. Basically, something we'd expect from a feature phone from the last decade. On the other side of the coin, we have the Realme Narzo 20A. Now the design here isn't new or exciting, but it's a plastic unibody and to its credit feels a lot more sturdy than the backplate of the Nokia. I also prefer the added heft of the Narzo 20A. At about 195 grams, is just 10 grams heavier than the Nokia, but carries a much bigger capacity battery. In the end, the Narzo 20A feels like a much better built device with nice tactile buttons, but Nokia trades all that for the luxury of having a replaceable back and battery. As always, we'll be leaving this round up to you guys, but personally, I'd go with the Narzo 20A here. Next up, we come to the displays, and since we are looking at phones in the under 10,000 rupee price bracket, both are 720p LCD panels. Interestingly enough, despite sharing similar dimensions, the 5.99-inch panel on the Nokia is dwarfed by the 6.5-inch one on the Narzo 20A. That's because we have sizable bezels surrounding this 18:9 panel on the C3. In comparison, the Narzo 20A looks a lot modern with its 20:9 aspect ratio and thin bezels, including a teardrop notch that holds the 8-megapixel selfie camera. Coming back to the panels themselves, colors are fine on both, so are the viewing angles, but the Narzo 20A holds the edge when it comes to brightness and outdoor visibility. Moving on to the internals, and this time the Nokia C3 doesn't even stand a chance. On one hand, we have the Snapdragon 665 AIE inside the Narzo 20A. It's one of the best processors that we can find in the under 10,000 rupee price bracket. And honestly, that shows both in benchmarks as well as in day-to-day performance. In comparison, the UniSoC SC9863A is an entry-level octa-core chipset and gets blown out of the water by Snapdragon 665. Now the chipset inside the Nokia C3 is a new one, but many people may know the chip maker by its old name, Spectrum. Anyway, the performance delta here is huge. Despite running on stock Android, the C3 suffers from numerous lag spikes. It heats up during normal usage. Even something as simple as YouTube playback can be a strain on it. So you guys can imagine the sad state of affairs when I started playing some games on the Nokia C3. To be fair though, the Adreno 610 GPU inside the 665 held up really well, and even at medium settings on Call of Duty Mobile, the Narzo 20A maintained exceptionally smooth experience. On the memory front, Nokia gives us the C3 with either 2 or 3 gigs of RAM coupled with 16 or 32 GB of internal storage. As for the Narzo, well, Realme offers it in either 332 or 464 GB variants. On the positive side of things, both phones come with micro SD card slots. Now, if you guys are thinking that the performance round was a total knockout, well, it keeps on getting worse for the Nokia. I mean, the only good thing that I can say about the 3040 mAh battery is that it's removable, because battery life is really not what I'd expect. Like, first off, 3000 mAh is a little less compared to modern standards, but then we have a 28 nanometer chip in here. Just to put it into perspective, guys, the Snapdragon 665 is an 11 nanometer SoC. So thanks to the highly inefficient chip on board the C3, battery life is half a day at most. In comparison, we have a massive 5000 mAh battery on the Narzo 20A and an 11 nanometer chip, as we mentioned before. So the battery life on it is 2x, if not more. When it comes to charging them up, we have to deal with some pretty slow charging speeds. At least the Narzo 20A is at 10 watts. The Nokia C3 though, it charges at a measly 5 watts. And both use the micro USB port, so no Type-C here. It's been win after win for Realme at this point, but when it comes to software, it's stock Android versus Realme UI. So that should be an easy win for Nokia, right? Well, not quite. While stock Android definitely has the upper hand on most occasions, the hardware here is just too dated to even run vanilla Android 10 smoothly. So although I generally prefer the stock Android look and feel over everything else, this time I'm gonna go for Realme UI over Nokia's take on stock Android. The Narzo 20A is just that much more smoother and more responsive when moving around. Before we move into the cameras and put an end to this one-sided battle, let me take you guys quickly through the sundries. Both phones have headphone jacks and a single speaker, but on the C3 the in-call speaker doubles as a loudspeaker while the 20A has a separate bottom-firing one. The C3 though wins this one as it is a louder front-firing speaker. When it comes to sound quality through the headphone jack though, I prefer the output from the Narzo 20A more. As far as security goes, both phones come with fingerprint and face unlock, but they just seem to work a tad faster on the Realme when compared to the Nokia. The C3 though has one advantage in the form of an extra Google Assistant button that can come in handy at times. Unfortunately though, it's not customizable. When it comes to the optics, we have triple camera setup on the Narzo 20A going up against the single rear camera on the Nokia C3. But since two of the cameras on the Narzo 20A are monochrome and retro, basically placeholders to increase the count of cameras, it all comes down to the primary shooters. So we have a 12 megapixel f1.8 shooter on the Narzo 20A going up against the 8 megapixel f2.0 shooter on the Nokia C3. Side by side, basically there's no contest here. The Narzo 28 takes way better shots. They are more detailed, the skies look blue instead of being washed out, and colors are more natural. And there's a lot more detail in the shadows even. So the dynamic range on the Narzo 28 is a whole lot better. And if you're hoping that maybe the Nokia C3 would do better under low light, well, let me stop you right there. It doesn't. The Narzo 28 takes brighter, more well-detailed images by a long shot. As for the selfies, we have the 8 megapixel snapper on the Narzo going up against the 5 megapixel one on the C3. And as can be expected, the Narzo 20A is again better in all respects. More details, no overexposure of the background, and the Nokia C3 seems to have a slight yellow tint to all the images. By this time, it's pretty clear who has the better cameras. But hey, we took a look at the videos as well, just to be thorough. The Narzo 20A can capture 4K footage, which is honestly pretty rare in the under 10,000 rupee price range. The Nokia C3 can only record up to 1080p 30 FPS, and the dynamic range on the C3 is all over the place. So are the details. Basically, like the last so many rounds before it, the Narzo 20A wins the camera round as well. Finally though, we have a win for the Nokia C3. When it comes to the price, the C3 starts at 7,499 rupees, while the base variant of the Realme Narzo 20A costs 1 grand more. That's 8,499 rupees. But before you guys jump to conclusions, the base variant of the C3 is 2 gigs of RAM with 16 gigs of storage. So honestly guys, personally, I consider that kinda unusable at this point, which means the 332GB version of the Nokia C3 costs us a cool 9,000 rupees. So the Narzo 20A has a better screen, much faster performance, longer lasting and faster charging batteries, smoother software, and much nicer cameras, all for 500 rupees less than the 332GB Nokia C3. The decision here is pretty clear cut guys, do not buy the Nokia C3. I understand the emotion, I understand the non-Chinese feeling, but if it comes down to the C3 versus Narzo, I'd always go Realme. The Nokia C3 has been just that bad of a phone, guys. I honestly can't find one redeeming quality about it. Well, that's been my opinion. Now I wanna know yours. Do you still wanna pick up the Nokia C3? If so, let me know why. Or would you pick up the Narzo 20A? Or maybe even something else like the Redmi 9 Prime maybe. What would be your choice in the under 10,000 rupee price segment? Let me know in the comments below. And with that, we come to the end of this video. As always, like, share, subscribe, and turn on notifications by hitting that bell icon if you haven't yet. Thanks a lot for watching till the end guys. Have a good one. Cheers.